There is a light bulb in a fire station in Livermore, California that has been burning since 1901. Not a typo. 1901. It has been on for over 1 million hours. Your light bulb lasts about 1,000 hours. That is not an accident. That is a business decision made in a secret meeting in Geneva in 1924. On December 23, 1924, executives from the biggest lighting companies on Earth gathered in a room in Geneva. Osram from Germany, Philips from the Netherlands, Compagnie des Lampes from France, Tungsram from Hungary, General Electric from the United States through its overseas subsidiaries, Tokyo Electric from Japan. Together, these companies controlled roughly 90% of the world's light bulb production. 9 out of every 10 light bulbs on Earth came from this room. They formed something called the Phoebus Cartel, named after the Greek god of light, which, in hindsight, is almost poetic in its arrogance. And they agreed on one thing: light bulbs were lasting too long. The average bulb at the time burned for about 2,500 hours. The cartel's decision cut that number to 1,000, not because the technology couldn't support longer life, but because shorter life meant more sales. Here is what makes this different from your standard corporate greed story. The Phoebus Cartel didn't just agree to make worse light bulbs. They engineered the system to make sure nobody could cheat. Every member company had to submit its bulbs for testing. If your bulbs lasted longer than 1,000 hours, if you accidentally made something too good, you paid a fine. The penalty schedule was precise. Bulbs averaging between 150 and 2,000 hours, 20 Swiss francs for every 1,000 units sold. Bulbs that dared to last beyond 3,000 hours, half a Swiss franc per individual bulb. In 1929 alone, total fines hit 304,000 Swiss francs. And these weren't symbolic fines. Companies that exceeded their sales quotas faced penalties up to 100,000 Reichsmarks. The cartel enforced mediocrity with the precision of a tax agency. But here is the detail that stops people cold. Reducing bulb lifespan from 2,500 hours to 1,000 hours was not easy. You couldn't just use cheaper materials and call it a day. The engineering required to make a bulb die reliably at 1,000 hours, not 999, not 100, took years of deliberate research and development. They spent money, time, and talent making their product worse, and they did it so well that even after the cartel dissolved in 1939, the 1,000-hour standard stuck. For decades, follow the money. That is always the instruction. So let's follow it. The global bulb market today is worth $66.9 billion, but that number only exists because of a decision made in 1924. If light bulbs lasted as long as they technically could, you would buy fewer of them. The entire market would shrink. The Phoebus Cartel didn't just change light bulbs, they invented a business model. Planned obsolescence, the deliberate strategy of designing products to fail, so you have to buy them again. And that model spread. Everywhere. Your iPhone slowing down after 2 years? Apple was fined 25 million euros in France in 2020 for exactly that, deliberately throttling older phones with software updates. Your printer telling you the ink cartridge is empty when it's half full? Same playbook. Consumer organizations estimate that planned obsolescence costs the average European between 47,000 and 50,000 euros over a lifetime. For American households, the number is around $1,043 per year just in technology devices. One meeting in Geneva, one decision to make bulbs die faster, and 100 years later, you are still paying for it. And then there's the part nobody talks about, the waste. Every year, the world generates 50 million tons of electronic waste, 50 million, and about 85% of it gets dumped, often in developing countries where regulations are weaker and the health consequences are someone else's problem. Greenhouse gas emissions from electronic devices and their waste surged 53% between 2014 and 2020. By 2030, e-waste sources could emit 852 million metric tons of CO2 annually. That is the environmental cost of a strategy invented to sell more light bulbs. But something is shifting. Finally, France made planned obsolescence a criminal offense in 2015, penalties up to 2 years in prison and a 300,000 euro fine. The European Union adopted the Right to Repair Directive in June 2024. By July 2026, manufacturers must repair products within a reasonable time at a reasonable price. And the EU's eco-design regulation, also effective July 2026, explicitly bans designing products to fail prematurely. 17 U.S. states have pushed right-to-repair legislation. The tide is turning. 100 years after 5 companies decided to make light bulbs die faster, governments are finally saying, enough. That light bulb in Livermore. It was made by a company called Shelby Electric, using a hand-blown carbon filament designed by a French engineer named Adolphe Chaillet. It was built to last, and it has, for over 120 years. The Phoebus Cartel proved something uncomfortable. We know how to make things that last. We have known for over a century. The reason your products break is not a limitation of engineering. It is a choice, made by people who profit when things fail. The most profitable invention in the history of consumer goods was not the light bulb. It was making the light bulb break. And if you think light bulbs are wild, wait until you see who really owns the world's salt. That video is right here. Follow Mundane Markets for more hidden economics. The next one is going to bother you.